نتابع معركة جوية، معركة في السماء، يعني تصوير الآن. يبدو أن الاعتراض علينا. هناك أيضا سقوط في
Well, I guess you have two kinds of wars. You have an Iranian response directly against American assets. Geography is destiny. We have 40,000 troops deployed within range of Iran short-range ballistic missiles. They have thousands of those. 2,500 troops in Iraq, probably less than 1,000 in Syria. They're vulnerable. So if the Iranians decide to strike frontally against American assets, there was a newswire coming across that the Iranian parliament has now voted, waiting for the supreme leader. And by the way, we haven't heard anything from the supreme leader, voted to close the Straits of Hormuz, which would be a backdoor, frankly, to an escalation between Iran and the United States. Because if the Iranians try to close these straits, the Americans will open it, and they will come in contact with the Iranian Navy and a lot more. So that's one kind of war. I would describe that, I guess, as regional war, because the Houthis would become involved, pro-Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria would become involved. The Iranians could pursue asymmetrical cyber terror attacks abroad against Israeli and American interests. And we'd witness what we have never seen before, which is a more comprehensive war involving the United States and Israel and Iran. The alternative is the Iranians, the Syrian leader decides that he can't afford to take on Israel and the US. And he looks for a middle ground response through proxies, which don't strike the US directly with an Iranian hand, but still easily trace back to Tehran. And the Americans respond. And maybe you get a tit for tat for a day or so, but you avoid the more comprehensive version. That seems to me, more likely if you were calculating what the ultimate objective of the supreme leader is. And I'd quote my colleague at Carnegie's Karima Sajapur, who says that the day after any revolution, the most extreme revolutionary becomes a conservative, because preserving the revolution now becomes the organizing principle. And of all the things Ali Khamenei must feel right now, trying to get back at Donald Trump for killing Qasem Soleimani, getting back at the Israelis, the Iranians responded this morning with 30 ballistic missiles, which caused substantial damage in Israel. But the one thing he wants to avoid is any interruption in the succession process, to pass on the revolution to his successor or successors. And he has to calibrate that response very carefully. I don't think we're on the cusp of regime change or even regime destabilization. But you never know, in the event that you end up with a major conflict, what the upshot consequences should be. So I guess those would be the two sorts of wars that I would describe. There's also the possibility that in the weeks ahead, this devolves into basically a very familiar piece of the Israeli-Iranian story, where the two sides go at one another with cyber, with assassinations, with black ops, an occasional strike or two. Iran relies on its proxies. That's another possibility here.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
It's been quite a long evening here at the White House after President Donald Trump announced that the United States had struck the nuclear sites in Iran, in Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. The U.S. president had indicated that he would take some time to make this decision, with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying on Thursday it could take up to 2 weeks. But President Trump acted. What Trump said after announcing the strikes on Truth Social in a speech at the White House, he said that Iran's nuclear ambitions had been obliterated, that the bombardment had been a success. And remember, these were not easy strikes. These were bunker-busting bombs that had to be launched from B-2 bombers. And there had been some indication that the U.S. was ready to move, as commercial trackers had seen planes used to refuel these bombers leaving on Saturday from Missouri, but that appeared to be quite possibly something of a decoy mission. Obviously, the United States did not start this war with Iran. It began roughly a week ago when Israel struck Iran's nuclear facilities. The United States had largely tried to stay on the sidelines, even though it has supported Israel militarily, but that all changed with Trump's intervention. Iran has suggested that anyone who interfered with its nuclear program would be subject to attack. And so again, we're going to see what happens next, given what this means not just for Iran, not just for Israel, but possibly for the United States.
Well, we've long had concerns about the Iranian nuclear program and been very clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The US has now taken action to alleviate that threat. It is important that we now de-escalate the situation, stabilize the region, and get the parties back around the table to negotiate. And I've been speaking with international leaders this morning to that end. So I want to reassure the British public that we're doing everything we can to stabilize the situation, to de-escalate the situation, and to get to a negotiated outcome. But I'm very clear in my own mind that Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. That is the greatest threat to stability in the region.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.